Man, the myth, Erik Erlendsson, Double E's, lightninginsider.com is the website. Well, I just got my renewal notice. I got to renew, which I will do here this week. What's up, Double E's? How are you?
I'm good, JP. What's going on? Causing shenanigans over here?
We got shenanigans going on all day long. And I'm going to make all the Lightning fans are waiting for us to talk Lightning breathlessly. But, I know you're a soccer fan. And we're in the middle of the summer soccer, which is kind of cool. We're less than a year away from the freaking World Cup coming to the USA, which is interesting. Yep. And the United States team it was in turmoil, but I think this Gold Cup performance has kind of righted the ship. If I'm okay with that, maybe not. I'll get your take on it. They win last night over Guatemala to get into the Gold Cup final, and that's going to be against Mexico on Sunday. That's going to be fun to watch. Your thoughts on where this team is with the new coach?
Well, it's a little hard to judge in some ways because you don't have Pulisic, you don't have Weston McKennie, you don't have Sergino Dents. Like, you don't have some of the top names. Tim Weah's not in this camp and this group. I mean, it's great. I mean, look, they were a shootout loss away to Costa Rica from not even getting out of the quarterfinals. I mean, it's just crazy how these single elimination tournaments work. And I was a game they had a 2-1 lead late, and they blew it before it got to PKs. So I don't know if I'm ready to say the ship is righted, but given where things were heading leading up to the Gold Cup, there was definitely some trepidation kind of going on a little bit with Pochettino and wondering if he was going to be able to bring his success to a national program. But again, I think it's hard to judge on this team. I think we've seen some eye-opening performances, specifically last night, Diego Luna with a couple of goals in the first 15 minutes of the match.
And what a goal. What a goal. I haven't seen an American player, that second goal, I haven't seen an American player. First one was magnificent finish too. But that second one, I haven't seen an American player do that in I don't know how long.
Yeah, so I think in a lot of ways that the way that they have utilized this tournament in a look ahead to next summer when the chips are all in, like, we're all waiting for that signature win in U.S. soccer, and certainly we had one a number of years ago when they beat Spain, when Spain was at the top of their cycle and all the championships that they had. In 2010 we got close, right? We got to the round of 16, we got to the quarterfinals. We're a header away from beating Germany and getting to the semifinals. What a moment that could have been. So we're waiting for that sort of signature moment for U.S. soccer. So now you've got the Pulisics and the Weahs and the McKennies next summer, provided all are healthy, knock on wood. And now you're getting to see some of these younger players. Who was it? Jack McGlynn. Wow, what a player! He's 19 years old.
Yeah.
Boy, he's had a couple of really good, impressive goals here during this summer camp for U.S. soccer. So you're seeing some of these younger players that maybe we weren't aware of. And, and a lot of them play in MLS, which I looked at this roster when it came out and said, oh, all these MLS players, really? But they've really kind of stepped forward here a little bit. And, and look, I know it's CONCACAF. It's not Europe. It's not CONMEBOL. It's not the top federation by any stretch of the imagination. So the competition is not top tier. There'll be a challenge on Sunday against Mexico for sure. But I've been impressed with some of these younger players stepping up when they're being asked to step up. And sometimes that's what you have to look for.
Why are not Pulisic and Weahs playing in this Gold Cup that's so close to the World Cup? I thought we'd be putting the team together that's going to go forward into the World Cup. I'm a little ignorant as to why they're not playing. I know they have some other obligations, but with the World Cup coming up, wouldn't this be obligation number one? Why? I'm confused.
You would think, especially to get some cohesion under a new coach.
Yes.
Right? And there'll be a couple of camps between now and then. And, they don't have to qualify. They're in as host nation as an automatic qualifier, but they'll still go through the qualification rounds for CONCACAF. Juventus, which is where McKennie plays for, was in the FIFA Club World Cup. So he was with this club team. Pulisic, I think just he needed a break, right? He's had a terrific year in Italy, and in the Champions League. He's had some great moments. I think he was just looking for some rest because next summer is a target. We know how good Christian Pulisic is, and he's certainly taken a step forward. since leaving the Premier League and going to Spain and playing or Italy, sorry, and playing for Roma. So I think it was just some of that aspect of it that they want those guys rested. They don't want to wear them down because we know how important next summer is.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm with you. You want cohesion from your top players playing under a brand new coach, but that was the direction they go, and Pochettino was okay with it.
All right, we'll move on and talk a little Lightning because this is, I think you and I may have said this. I know Ben Blum and I said it on the post game show after the Lightning were eliminated by the Panthers. It's like, this is a really good team. The Panthers they're going to go on to win the Stanley Cup. I think we all said that after they beat up on the Lightning. But we also said, well, at least they won't be able to bring everybody back. They won't be able to bring Sam Bennett back. And they're going to get hit hard in free agency.
Wow.
Well, I was wrong. They brought the whole damn group back, and they're signed till 2030. And I'm like, holy shizbang. How the hell did Zito do this? And, I mean, he got a lot of guys to take less money. Same thing the Lightning have been able to do over this run that they've been on. So, first and foremost, were you surprised that Zito was able to bring the whole group back?
Absolutely. I didn't think there was any way they'd be able to bring back all these guys. Now, a lot of people, and I've had people show up on my mentions, oh, well, Zito is now easily the best GM. He's bypassed Julian Breezeball and all this, and I get it. But let's also understand, Bill Zito has something that Julian Breezeball was not able to work with. Julian Breezeball had a flat cap.
Yep.
Bill Zito has an increasing cap. So he's able to maybe work something to where the Lightning couldn't keep an Andre Palat or an Alex Killorn or Steven Stamkos. These players, the cap stayed flat for 3 years, almost 4 years.
Right.
And, for Julian and the staff to kind of keep the team together as well as they could have under those circumstances, whereas Zito is able to bring these guys back. Are they player or are they team friendly deals? Absolutely. And, they've certainly established something down there. The culture that we all talk about in pro sports and locker rooms is certainly there with the Panthers. So they want to continue to be a part of it. But the cap is increasing, and it's increasing by a significant number over the next 3 years. So Florida has cap room to work with to re-sign these guys, whereas Tampa Bay did not. So I think that's one advantage that they've had. But, especially after they signed Bennett, you thought, okay, well, that's Marchand's not coming back, and there's no way they re-sign Ekblad. And then Ekblad re-signs, and then Marchand re-signs. Now, nobody expects Marchand to play 6 more years until he's 43, but that's how you get these things done in these situations, is spread the cap out over a number of years. So, very surprised that Florida was able to keep it together. But as we've seen with the Lightning, it's a long climb back up a mountain. It's a long climb back up after you've been there 3 straight years. Can they continue to perform at that level? And we'll see. The Atlantic Division is deeper. It's tougher. You look at some of the improvements the Canadians have made after making the playoffs last year. And, we're all waiting for Buffalo to kind of take a step forward. Ottawa made the playoffs last year. The division's deeper. It's going to be tougher to get into. But I still see Tampa Bay and Florida as the 2 premier teams in this league. And we'll see what happens with Toronto.
All right, to that end, JBB came out and said, don't expect anything big this offseason. And I was like, okay. Maybe a little subterfuge there, although we haven't seen anything yet. Do you expect something big? I mean, obviously there's not a whole lot of cap room to work with, but obviously he can trade contracts and do something big as he did last year, which was monumental, what happened last year. And also took the Lightning from a very poor 5-on-5 team to one of the best 5-on-5 teams in the league in one season. What he did last offseason was phenomenal. There's no question about it. Now, you can argue the first round exit, but I'll argue that's the best team in the league by far that they lost to. So is there still time? And I'll say to this, I'll ask the McDavid question after this. So is there so the floor is yours. Is there time to do something big? Throw the McDavid thing in there. Is that even a possibility? I haven't really I hear things that Spit and Chickless is talking about it. They usually know what's going on, but there's been a lot of smoke. I don't see it. I don't get it. So Go ahead.
Well, it's hard for me to envision McDavid coming to Tampa. I mean, he's up for contract, right? He's going into a contract year, and he's already got the highest cap hit in the league,
Right.
right? So it's not going down. Cap's going up. McDavid's cap hit is not going down.
No.
So it's hard for me to envision that without gutting a couple of players off your roster, which you would have to do anyway to try and make something like this work. Um, I don't ever rule anything out, right? And Julian, we've learned every time Julian says don't expect anything, I don't believe him.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's at face value, but things always happen, and something might come up. The McDonough trade last summer, and nobody saw that coming, right? We're not making it, we're done,
Right.
and everything. So I don't. When Julian says he's done, I don't necessarily believe him. I think
agree.
he's being honest, but I don't necessarily believe he something's not potentially cooking. Um, so in that aspect, do I expect something this summer? I mean, look, they've been kind of still in the conversation for Nikolai Ehlers, who arguably is the top free agent guy in the market, especially after Mitch Marner was traded to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, can that work? I mean, you look at the cap room that the Lightning have currently. Ehlers is getting more than what they have in available cap space right now. Does that mean they can work things out? And, you could be 10% over the cap during the summer. You just have to be compliant by the time the season comes around. So is that a possibility? I guess it is. But you look at this roster right now, and as of right now, if the Lightning went into training camp with this roster, Julian's going to have something he hasn't had in a number of years, and that's a pretty significant amount of cap space. 4.2, I think they're under the cap right now. For the Lightning, that's a lot of cap space.
Yeah, we usually have like $12.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that accumulates over the course of the season. So as you get close to a trade deadline, well, now you're talking about a potential significant player.
Right.
Depending on what kind of capital you want to, send the other way. But that's something that they haven't had in a long time, is this amount of cap space. And the other thing we don't talk about much in terms of, the loss to Florida in the first round. We didn't get to see Oliver Bjorkstrand in the playoffs.
Right. Right.
He's a clutch goal scorer in big moments, and we didn't get to see that. We talked about how that would have addressed the depth scoring and given them another threat, specifically on the third line, and he wasn't able to play. We're going to get a full year, if he's healthy, assuming he's healthy, of Bjorkstrand to see where he fits in. Connor Geeky's another year older. There's a lot of belief in Jack Finley at 6'6". This forward group still doesn't have a lot of size. Jack Finley would certainly bring that Brian Boyle type of size to the lineup and as a potential fourth line center. So I think if they went into camp with this team, I think they'd be comfortable with that. Could you use more depth on defense? Sure. I mean, all you've done on defense right now is swapped out Nick Perbix for Max Crozier.
Yeah. Which is fine. What's that?
I think I like Crozier. I think he's a good fit. He's a good partner with Emil Lilleberg. So I've liked their top four. I'm concerned about their bottom pairing. But if it's Crozier and Lilleberg and they find that chemistry that they've had in the past, you might be a little bit more okay with that. So I think there's a lot of stuff that they want to see maybe percolate a little bit rather than going out and trying to make a big splash. But Julian always has something up his sleeve.
I agree. And, you look at who they added, Pontus Holmberg, and was it Pelletier? Do you count Jacob Pelletier? Yeah.
Yep.
Neither one of these guys are bringing a whole lot of size and grit, toughness, which I believe it's missing a little bit here in this team. I think the fans are definitely calling for it, but what do they know? But is that something? I know this has been asked and answered, but I don't know. I think when I see some of these fourth line, third line pieces added, first question I'm asking, how big is he? What does he do? And those aren't those guys, are they? I mean, are those guys that are going to add? They're not.
No. But I will remind Lightning fans who are looking for this, you had that guy 2 years ago and you ran him out of town.
I know.
Right. And he just signed a pretty big contract with the Boston Bruins and Tanner.
I know.
Right. Like nobody wanted to fight Tanner Jeannot because nobody wants to fight Tanner Jeannot.
Right.
right? And he is a physical guy. Now, did he fit in the system? Didn't feel like it.
No.
He looked a little lost in the system at times. He didn't exactly go to LA and light things up, right? And I was surprised at the 5-year deal he got from the Bruins, but he does have that element that teams are looking for, which is size and physicality and, a quote unquote enforcer. But I still think, like, if you had a guy like that in the playoffs against Florida, would it have mattered?
I don't know. Maybe there would have been a response to the Hagel hit, a better response, any response.
Potentially, but like that hit. So you're okay. Game 3. Maybe
that hit doesn't. Maybe, and listen, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate with you here because I kind of agree to a point, but I also say, does that hit even happen if Tanner Jeannot is playing for the Lightning?
Yeah,
I mean that's the point, right?
Florida was not going to be deterred. Florida played against everybody the same way.
Look, true. You know what? That's a great point.
And that's part of Florida's makeup. They want to pull you out of your game and make you think more about that stuff than actually playing hockey. Because look what happened to Edmonton.
Yep.
They tried it, and they willfully went after guys, and it didn't change anything. So I think if you have a guy,
they just got scored on in power play.
Yeah, regular season is different, right? Like that stuff, it factors in during the regular season. In the playoffs, not so much.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had a Jeannot out there, is he going to go pummel Matthew Tkachuk for his hit on Jay Gensel? I don't know if he'd get that chance, but I don't know if he'd get that chance, right? Like I just think it's an overvalued element in today's game. It's almost a luxury. If you have it, it's a luxury. And like Sam Bennett's not a big guy, right? Like he's not, but he's an agitator.
Yeah.
Aaron Ekblad is an agitator. Like they don't have quote unquote enforcers.
Yeah.
They just have some guys who are 6'2" who agitate the crap out of you.
I think actually, I don't know if you wrote this or somebody wrote this. When you compare the size of the Lightning and the Panthers, are almost exactly identical.
Yeah.
Just
now,
in terms of height and weight.
Yeah. The difference is most of that for Tampa Bay is on their back end.
Right.
Chernak, McDonough, Hedman, Lilleberg, all big. Right. Up front, and they don't have any big forwards. And I'm sorry, Brandon Hagel is not 6'2". I don't know in what universe Brandon Hagel
is he listed at 6'2"?
He is listed at 6'2". I don't know. He must have been on his skates or something. But they don't have that, right? And that's where Jack Finley comes into it. And I know
Connor Geekie. I want to see Connor Geekie put on his man weight because he's got an edge to him. But when he gets his man weight on him, he's just 20 years old, maybe 21 now, but I think he could play at 230, 235 and still skate like he does. He's just, he's got a big frame.
Yep. And that's how he made the team out of camp was some of the elements of his game. So he had it. And the Pelletier signing, so like everybody's going to look at, he's not a big guy, and I get it. It's a low risk, high reward. He's a former first-round draft pick. He's got a lot of skill. He's got good hockey IQ, which is something this team is always looking for. He's a reclamation project. If it doesn't work out, you send him to the minors. He's not making a ton of money. Yeah. But there's a potential for a high reward with him in terms of the skill set. Again, there's not a lot of size amongst their forward group, and I thought maybe they would try and address that. I also thought that maybe they'd try and address faceoffs because Luke Glendening is gone. He was 57. Everybody else was between 49 and 51 on this team. So I just think that the enforcer role is overvalued by a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the Lightning don't have a lot of value in it because if you're gonna find that guy, he has to play.
Right.
And let's be honest, there's not a lot of those type of guys who can play.
Yeah.
There's some. No. There's some, but there's not a lot who can do both.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and that's very well said. The Isaac Howard situation, we've talked about this before, but Julian came out and basically laid it out. It's like the teams I want to trade him to don't want to give me what I want, and the teams that he wants to go to or teams that he wants to go to won't give me what I want, and they know that, right? It's like the teams that he knows, they know, hey, he wants to come here. We don't have to give up a whole lot, and the ones that really want him, he doesn't want to go to. So it's a bit of a stalemate, but I still think the Lightning have most of the leverage. I still think Isaac Howard doesn't want to go back to play. And even though they can make money in college now, he's going to lose it on the back end in his, in his contract in the Lightning. You want to get your pro career going quickly because you get to free agency quicker. That's where the big money is. So I still think the Lightning have a little bit of leverage here, but I think we're just going to have to wait till the deadline comes, which is basically right before training camp, right?
A little bit before that, because of, but even if he goes back to school, even if he heads back to campus, he can change his mind. Right? Okay, I'm going to go sign pro. Like it's like any other college player who just decides I'm going to leave school, I'm going to turn pro. They're not bound to any sort of a contract to go back to school. Now, I will say the one outside X factor in Howard potentially going back to Michigan State. There's been some talk of Gavin McKenna, who's draft eligible this year. He's going to be the first overall draft pick. He had like a 55 game point streak in the Western League this year. He's a fantastic player. There's word he might go to Michigan State because now that the NCAA has changed some of their rules, you can have these junior players in Canada who can now transfer into schools rather than losing their amateur eligibility under the old way. Right. Yeah. So these top players now have choices outside of junior. And I think you're seeing that the way that college players develop nowadays and how they're more NHL ready than certainly they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's because they only play 30 some odd games, but that gives you more time to work out and work. Yeah. Right? It gives you more time to add that element to your game while still getting some pretty good competition, especially in the Big Ten. And so if he goes to Michigan State, maybe that changes Howard's mind and he can play with a player like that and maybe win a national championship. But I still think he wants to go pro. Yeah, I don't think he's been shy about that. So I still believe. And look, we saw last year the Cutter Gauthier for Jamie Drysdale trade happened in September. Right. Like it happened before the start of the season. So that potential's there. And you're right. It's a stalemate. It's almost a game of chicken in some ways. Yeah. But the Lightning hold the leverage because if Isaac Howard can only sign with one team right now. Right. Unless it's traded, then it's different. So they hold some leverage over him as well. He has some. But so the Lightning have more leverage now. The longer this goes on, the less leverage the Lightning have. But that also means Isaac Howard loses one more additional year on his pro status.
And it's weird we don't even talk about this, but he's not signing with the Lightning. Could he ever play for the Lightning?
You never rule anything out, but certainly everything points to that the two sides are too far apart that they're not going to find a way to come together. But like with anything else in these situations, just takes one phone call and one change of heart.
Yeah. Do you think he would fit in well? Where would he fit in if he played here?
He's a top 6 guy. I don't know about right away, but he's a top 6 player. I mean, his skill sets, his ability to score goals. You watch some of those games, in the Big Ten tournament and the clutch goals. I mean, he carried that Michigan State team to a Big Ten title. Yeah. He had points. He pointed on every goal in their overtime victory. The double overtime victory, I think, was against Ohio State. He's a beast. And
where did it go wrong? Like how do you not want to play for the Tampa Bay Lightning?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Well, the relationship was always good. I would say that because all the conversations I had with people internally, they would always tell me he's listening to what we're asking him to do. We've asked him to put on weight. He's done that. We want him to work on his 200-foot game. He's done. He did everything. He followed the quote unquote Lightning way. I just think it broke down after Michigan State season ended, and he wanted to jump straight to the NHL. First of all, the Lightning didn't have the cap space to make that happen.
Was that the biggest problem?
Yeah.
I think had cap space, he probably comes up.
Well, and the other part of it, too, the irony is if Michigan State had made the Frozen Four like we all expected them to, then it's a 2-week delay before you can even have these talks. And by then, you would have had the cap space. So if Michigan State had been able to find a way to get to the Frozen Four and not get knocked out by Cornell, then that's a different story. Potentially a different story. But, these players that are coming up, and the Lightning never had this type of a college player in their system. They never had a Hobey Baker winner, let alone a Hobey Baker potential guy. So he ends up going on to win the Hobey Baker Leagues. So they never had this type of a high-profile college player to kind of negotiate with. And these guys typically make the jump to the NHL. Ryan Howard, in Washington did that. Right? He went straight out of college, straight to the Capitals, even though they were a playoff team. So it's not unusual to see that, and I think that's what he wanted. The Lightning just were not able to give it to him. Go down to Syracuse, play for a couple weeks, and we'll see where it goes from there. I just get the sense he didn't want to do that.
Okay. All right. All right, partner. Anything else we need to know? And the draft picks are, they're years away. So
yeah.
no, nobody's helping anytime soon, right? We don't need to talk about them just yet. All right, partner. Tell everybody how they can get your great content at lightninginsider.com.
Yeah, well, you see the website there on the Chiron down below, and two opportunities. There's a $40 a year plan, and there's a $4.99 plan. Those prices haven't changed, and we're going on almost 9 years now.
Raise your prices, inflation, Eric. Come on now.
Yeah, I haven't done it. I'm always hesitant to do it, but those prices haven't changed. So it's $40 a year, $4.99 a month. Just go to lightninginsider.com, and that's how you can sign up.
All right. Thank you, Double E's. Great stuff as always, my friend.
All right. Thanks, JP. Be well.
All right. We'll see you soon. Great, Erik.